I go camping with Brady and Promise, and they're all bougie and tomahawk steaks and all kinds of cool stuff. Because all I want to do is eat as quick as I can and as clean as I can and actually put something in my body that makes me feel good. So that's Peak Refuel accompanied with a jet boil. It's just, it makes camp life way easier for me.
It's a staple.
Yeah. Welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast, brought to you by the team of hunt advisors at the Huntin Fool magazine, where we are dedicated to helping our members go on more hunts with better information. Join Huntin Fool today at huntinfool.com.
All right, welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast. We are sitting down. It is the end of 2023, and we're going to take a look back at the gear that we used over the course of the year, and take a look at our favorite pieces of hunting clothing, gear that we used in camp, gear that we carried on our person, the gear that we were most disappointed with this year, as well as we're going to round off with what's the weirdest thing that you carry in your pack. So we have sitting here 6 of us. We have a showing. We have Matt from HFA. We have Jared Lyle, CEO of Huntin Fool. We have Forrest Pike, Director of Gear Fool. Promise Smith, our Jane of all trades, Gear Fool, Huntin Fool. And Brady Harang, our media producer. And I'm Jake Lyle. And we're just going to go around and we're going to talk to each one of these categories and share out from our experiences in the field this year, talk about those highlights and lowlights as it pertains to gear. But just to kick us off and warm us up, let's just go around and speak to what hunts you went on this year in 2023. So Matt, can I start with you?
Absolutely. This year, I started out in Oregon with a Roosevelt elk hunt. That tag's still good until March 31st of next year. Then I had an antelope hunt in Oregon, did blacktail and black bear in Oregon. I had an oryx hunt in New Mexico, and then got my butt kicked on a Rocky Mountain ewe sheep hunt in Montana, which was not successful. And then I go to Mexico for Coues deer here in a couple weeks.
Matt's definitely out kicking his coverage here because this is Jared, and I didn't have near as much fun as Matt did. No, I drew an Arizona archery elk tag with 23 points and hunted fairly hard on that hunt. And then I'd spent a little bit of time out in Montana with some other friends, including you, Jake, and on your guys' hunts. And then I wrapped it up with an Idaho deer tag in southern Idaho. Drew a limited entry late season any weapon tag.
Well, I guess it's my turn. I started off with Arizona OTC archery deer. I did spring bear twice, once in Idaho, once in Montana. Brought me to August. Ran up to, September, ran up to Idaho for archery elk. Came back down for some general elk activity here in Utah. Back up to Idaho for rifle mule deer, and then anchored it in Utah once again with my 12-year-old daughter on her first year of deer hunting. So that was it.
I started with Brady's over-the-counter spike hunt here in Utah, and then that was end of August, and was it middle of September? Mm-hmm. I went and filmed the first part of Jared's elk hunt, and then after that I had...
We had Josh's hunt, right?
Yeah, Josh's hunt that Brady was filming that I joined in on, which was Josh and his dad in Utah, and then Jessica's hunt in Arizona, and finished it with Jared's Idaho mule deer.
And I was on a moose hunt in Alaska for the first half of September. Joined Jared on the Arizona hunt. After that, went to Colorado with Garth and his daughter on an elk hunt. And then we did Josh's hunt on the Ponsagant here. And then I think it was back to you after that, right? On the Idaho hunt.
You and I spent way too much time together. There's no question about that.
And I'm the most boring out of everybody. I'm still a Montana resident, so I spent all my time in Montana hunting elk and deer this year. And I didn't even hunt spring bear, which we'll fix next year.
Yeah, that's a sin. If you live in Montana and you don't hunt spring bear, that's a sin.
I know. Okay. So starting at the top there, the first question that we asked everybody last week, and I might sprinkle in some of the responses from the other advisors in the building. We have a really big team. We cannot fit them all here in the studio, but we have a good showing here today between the 6 of us. But the first question I asked everybody in the building, what was your favorite piece of hunting clothing this year and why? We're going to start it off. Can we start it off with you, Jared, and then work our way around, and then Forrest, you'll start with the next one, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, sure. No, for me, prior to my Idaho deer hunt, I hadn't shot anything with a gun in 20 years on the nose. And so I always think about quietness when I'm in the field, and then like a warmth to weight ratio is super important. I experimented with Sitka gear this year for the first time since 2006 or 5, somewhere. The very first year Sitka came out, I was an early adopter, and then since I haven't gone back. But I loved the ambient hoodie. From a warmth to weight ratio, it's like mind-blowing how it's like putting on a little lightweight hug. And honestly, it's super quiet. And it was one of those items, I always kind of weigh these questions. Would I ever think about not putting it in my pack? And the answer was absolutely not. It went in my pack regardless of the temperature.
Kind of hard to top that one. For myself, I really kept a lot of the same hunt clothing I've had from the year prior, 2022. However, this year with the release of the Merca glove by Stone Glacier, I did throw that in. Not too high on the price point, but it made a significant difference for myself in the mountains. I wore it routinely. I generally don't pack gloves unless it's going to be cold weather. But this year I changed that up, and then having those on my hand when breaking brush or just doing basic camp chores, pulling tent stakes, throwing up a hasty shelter, it was just nice to have that little bit of a protective layer on the palm of my hands and a little bit of warmth on the back of my hands through each one of those trips. So definitely made a difference for me, and I'll keep it for trips to come.
My piece of gear was the Sitka Cadence pant. I usually have a hard time finding good pants that fit me well, the length and then around the waist, and those didn't have any seams that had any hard spots compared to other pants that I've had. And so they were just a piece of clothing that I didn't even think about. They were like, I wore them into late season when it was a bit colder, and I was able to layer and then
All of the above.
and then I also was able to wear them in more desert areas where it was hotter.
And on that, the Cadence pant, that's a women's pant from Sitka.
Mm-hmm.
You also ran the Timberline for a bit,
Yes.
too, didn't you?
Yeah.
How would you compare the Timberline and the Cadence?
The Timberline has more reinforcements and is a little bit more durable, but I didn't like how it was fine, but the seams where the zippers came across my hips, and as my waist belt on my pack wrapped around, it made a hard spot, and I got bruising from those seams. And so I'd always try to adjust my pants to the side to avoid the seams, and I didn't run into that with the Cadence pant.
Probably didn't help that you packed out about 65 pounds of my elk meat 5.5 miles in Arizona. Thank you very much, promise. It was a lifesaver.
Yeah, I was sure glad she was there.
Oh.
Otherwise, it would have just been you and me.
Oh, awful.
I'd have to repeat exactly what you said about the ambient. I went with the ambient jacket, just a little thicker and no hood. But it's a piece of gear that I have on every hunt that I go on. And then I also use it a lot just in the, like, around the house working on stuff. Like, it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
No, I think a lot of us tried out the ambient this year, and everybody's pretty much echoed that same thing. And something I'm a big fan of with it is I feel that it's something that you can layer in addition to down and get an added heat benefit, whereas just stacking down on top of down on top of down, eventually you're compressing the down and you're losing the benefit of the down.
Right.
But that ambient you can wear underneath of down and get way more insulation in those later season hunts.
It was crazy warm for as light as it is.
Yeah.
You pull it out of your pack and you're worried in a light breeze it's just going to blow away. And I lost mine a couple times.
And you can see through it. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you hold it up to light, you can see through that ambient jacket.
It's crazy.
For me, a big thing that I was super excited about this year was this is the first year I tried, well, really anything from the Stone Glacier lineup. I've been a big fan of the Stone Glacier Cirque Light jacket, and I almost put that down for my answer today, but instead I ended up going with really all three of their pants, the 206, the de Havilland Light, and the de Havilland Proper. They're the most adjustable pants I've ever found. I've always had a really hard time getting pants that fit. Kuiu pants were always way too tight for me. I got teased a lot on the mountain for my tight pants.
Not that kind of party, Jake.
I am so happy that finally we got those pants. They have that an adjustable waist system It has an integrated belt into the waistband, and it also has the ability to move the zipper by 3 inches with a Velcro mechanism, which mine's always maxed out, but in theory, if I lost some weight, I could bring that sucker back in by 3 inches. So really love those pants. All 3 of them are excellent. I love that Stone Glacier has a very clear, this is the early season pant, this is the versatile pant, this is the late season pant. I wore the 206 in September hunting archery elk. I wore the de Havilland pant this last weekend snowshoeing in the Wyoming backcountry. It's super straightforward with what to select and really adjustable.
I think I'd have to echo what you said. That's something I love about Stone Glacier's site is it's not a big jumble of 5 different options and they're all kind of this and that. It's like, nope, this is what you want for early. Here's your mid. Here's your late.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I go, I don't really change my gear list. Like, I'm pretty OCD with my gear list, as Jake knows. Like, everything's in spreadsheets depending on what season, what hunt. And I don't buy a whole lot of new gear. And I was like, well, what's a piece that I would not go on with any hunt? And mine's my Crispy Hunter boots. My background is in fire. I used to fight a lot of fire, so you need an 11-inch boot. So I like a tall boot. And I actually don't even tie mine. I haven't tied them in years. Like, heck, I kid you not, I camp lace them.
What are you, Shrek?
No, no, they just fit me so perfectly. Like, I could take a pair of 9.5 wide Crispy Hunters, camp lace them up the top. I've packed moose, caribou, elk, deer, bear. Like, this is my 4th pair, and I haven't tied the last 3.
You're an animal.
So they just fit my feet so well inside the foot pocket that, and they've never leaked. They're tall, so I'm a little bit more willing to step in deeper water with them and know that they're still not going to leak. I've got a few pairs of different Crispies, and they're all great, but the Crispy Hunter is hands down my favorite piece of gear.
Never heard that before.
Yeah.
Just don't tie them.
No, just camp lace them. Like, packing moose and caribou and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, they just camp lace them, and there's enough rigidity with how tall it is, just with a camp lace, that my ankles don't roll, and good set of trekking poles, and I'm off.
What is camp lacing?
So camp lacing, essentially, you're just going around the back. You're just tying around. So you're not actually using the eyelets.
Okay.
So just go around the back, and essentially it's 3 loops around the entire boot, and square knot her up, and ready to rock and roll. Yeah, no. And
So did you hunt tarmac exclusively this year?
Exactly. Exactly. No,
I know you were
that's
hunting
one of the
some
things.
steep coastal stuff for black bear and blacktail
and,
in Oregon.
And last year when I was packing my moose out in Alaska, we had a pretty good grade to come out of the hole that it died in, and it was about 400 vertical feet. And after I got my moose in my pack, I was like, I maybe should actually tie my boots. And then I'm like, I might get a blister if I tie it. I was like, I was like, I'm not changing what already works. So I went with it, and it just went just fine. So, no, they're my favorite boot. Having wide feet, they work really well for me. They're warm enough. I run pretty hot in my feet, so having a non-insulated or a 200-gram insulation in those, I mean, unless it's very cold, I'll run those year-round.
I do want to disclaim that I think Crispy would not approve of us endorsing the. So if you're listening, Crispy, we recommend lacing your boots.
No, they fit me so stinking well. I don't need to.
It's a shining endorsement of Crispy here.
Yeah.
Built different.
Built different.
Built to hunt.
Yeah.
All right. The next question we had for everybody, and Forrest, I'll have you kick off with this one. But what was the best piece of gear you used in camp this year, and why?
So this one was an easy one for me. In camp, it was the Light Cot by Helinox, taking that in place of a sleeping mat or sleeping pad for myself. Reason being, especially double tapping Spring Bear with Idaho and Montana, I liked the idea subconsciously and consciously of being 5 inches elevated up off the ground with those creepy crawly tick critters that are out there and inevitable. But also, I mean, you can't use it in late season, right? Because you're not going to have any of the insulating properties that you're going to want to have to provide that R value. But when Idaho Archery Elk came around, brother and I backpacked in. We hadn't selected our spike campsite yet. Wanted to get a quick glassing in, and then some weather rolled in a hurry. And so we set up our flowless shelter in an area we probably shouldn't. A lot of rocks, the kind of rocks that are jagged and you can't just dig out easily by no means. So the cot made it to where we just throw up that teepee, that floor of the shelter, assemble the cot and throw the sleeping bag on top, and we were able to make it through that one night and select a better site the night or the day thereafter. So, yeah, that Helinox light cot, a little bit of a weight penalty.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, it's significant. It's at least 1.5 pounds to possibly 2 pounds, and it's rather long in how it compresses and loads. But I strapped it to the outside or bottom of my main bag, and I liked it. I wouldn't use it every time, but there's times where
right
I think I will in the future.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that's it for me.
That's kind of cool that it allows you to sleep in or like be a lot less selective in your camping site.
Yeah,
if you have to.
If you have to be, right?
Yeah.
And then also, I think it contributed to just having a cleaner sleep system for days on end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not rolling over and
Yeah, getting your bag in the edge.
It's
of the
inevitable,
dirt.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it doubles for storage. I could put some of my, gear that came with me under the cot while I was sleeping, just adding more storage in the shelter that otherwise wouldn't be there. So I liked it.
Sweet.
That's me.
Mine's simple. These string lights that I've been bringing camping for the last couple of years. It's like this puck, and then there's this string of LED lights on them, and you can recharge them with a little solar panel on top. But they definitely made camp on Jared's hunt. We spent a couple of weeks in there, and just coming back and turning on those lights and stringing them up outside of camp just kind of gave it a little bit more of a homey feel.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it was awesome. Soft light in the morning. You're not fumbling for a headlamp. Just flip the switch and boom, the whole tent kind of lightly illuminates. They were awesome.
Yeah.
That it?
Yep.
Let's see. I threw the Silky Saw on here as number one. Not necessarily because it's anything too technical or special. It's just a saw that works really well. It's at a decent price point, and we used it on the moose hunt this year. And it was like, it was kind of fun. I almost don't like to admit it, but it was like, yeah, I want to cut something down. This thing's a blast.
A little beaver.
Yeah. Well, Isaiah, his brother, and I were all just sawing branches off all day, like being dumb boys.
Forts.
But yeah, that saw was impressive. Very sharp. Cleared the wood out of the teeth pretty well, and I definitely am glad that I bought one. I also had the Roman home tent on here, and that's a big one.
Yeah.
But we used it, I think, 3 different times this year.
Yeah.
That thing is home. Like, we set it up, and it takes about a half hour to set up. It's work, but it's not horrible, especially for a wall tent. And as soon as you move in, you throw up the string lights, you get a little kitchen set up, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can be here for a week or 2 weeks and be happy.
It's light enough. We even took it on Lake Powell in our
that's
family
right.
boat trip. We took it. It's such a, and we had a baby, like a little baby playpen in there for little Georgia, who was not quite a year old at the time. And like it creates a home away from home and the opportunity to do some adventures that otherwise wouldn't be very feasible without that much comfort.
And
Right.
it's a good thing it's light because we had about that much clearance on the boat from the water.
How long does it take to set up?
It's about a half hour. If you got 2 people that know how to do it, you could get it done in 20 minutes. But
wow.
we had it on Garth's hunt. We packed in with mules quite a few miles, and it was just his daughter and I setting it up, and she had no clue how to do it, and it took us 30 minutes.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah,
it's like it's just a wall tent, right? But the layout of it, it's got a stove in the center. The way it goes up, it's 50 pounds for the canvas, 50 pounds for the poles and everything else you need. So packing it on a horse is easy. It's just a nicely designed piece of gear.
That's great.
Yeah, I was comfortable in Lake Powell, and we basically set it up on a rock. You guys don't know how we got the stakes in. But
Some burros running around.
Yeah. It worked. For me, definitely this year I upgraded sleeping bags. That was a big one for me. I had in previous years just purchased a 0-degree bag because I wanted something that, in my mind, that was the most versatile. I'm like, okay, I can sleep with it flayed open if it's hot, and if it gets really cold, I can zip it up. A 0-degree bag's the way to go. I don't feel that way anymore. This is the first year that I ran with a 15-degree bag. I have the Stone Glacier Chilkoot 15, which is a phenomenal sleeping bag. It's been super, super comfortable, incredibly lightweight. And it's the big thing for me was initially when I made that decision between the 0 and the 15-degree bag, I was looking at weight, but not the packability. I wasn't looking at the actual size of it. So whereas the weight difference between my 0 and my 15 isn't huge, the big difference is how much I can fit in my pack. It takes up almost half of what my 0-degree bag took up, especially I pair it with that Sea to Summit 13-liter EVAC dry bag, which compresses that thing down as much as possible. Total game changer for the amount of space I have in my backpack now.
Yeah, and I think for me, the Hill & Ox Chair 0, it only weighs a pound, and depending on the hunt, I'm more than likely going to throw it in my pack. You know, I'm willing to pack an extra pound to be off the ground if I'm going to be glassing for a long day. And I push the limits for the weight limit that's supposed to be allowed on there. That's just what it is. And I'll tell you, I've had it for multiple years, and still straight, still comes out great. And then you take it back to camp, and you're off the ground. It's not looking for a log to take into camp.
Yeah.
Huge advocate for that. It is well worth it. And then for an audible mention, it's something that's kind of funny, and I've talked to Forrest about it a little bit. The Noctilite Petzl case, it's essentially it's a case for your Petzl headlamp.
Oh.
But it turns it into a lantern. And it's got a little tiny bungee that attaches to it. And so I carry 2 Petzls in my pack with me, one spare, one that I actually use. And so my spare I just keep in the Noctilite, and I hang it up in my tent at night, and it actually illuminates my entire 2-person Kuyu. So little $20 trinket essentially, but goes on every single hunt, because as far as illuminating a tent versus just having a headlamp hanging inside of it, I think it's a pretty sweet piece of gear.
That's
those
cool
are
mention.
2 good mentions. And I like the mention of you accept that weight penalty for more comfortable glassing.
Yeah.
Think whatever you can do to give yourself the wherewithal to glass long enough and not get antsy and get up and leave and miss the opportunity, like pack that thing. For me, it's puffy pants. I carry those glassing pants everywhere. I only wear them while I'm glassing, but it makes me comfortable enough that I wait half hour longer, and that's usually when I see game.
So no, and it rocks a little bit, which is nice when you're sitting there all day and you're just waiting to start glassing again. You can get I don't know if that's ADHD or what, but
yes, yes, it is.
But no, it's a super comfy chair, easy to get in and out of. I mean, I have yet to break it, so it works pretty well.
Mine's super boring. It's jet boil and peak refuel. I'm very utilitarian when it comes to camp life. I go camping with Brady and Promise, and they're all bougie and tomahawk steaks and all kinds of cool stuff. Because all I want to do is eat as quick as I can and as clean as I can, and actually put something in my body that makes me feel good. So that's peak refuel accompanied with a jet boil. It's just, it makes camp life way easier for me.
It's a staple.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's I'm thankful for it every single time. Like, ooh, I'm gonna have dinner in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be clean. I'm gonna have no dishes.
Are you the type that goes for a variety of peak refuel meals, or you keep it to like that select 1 to 2 meals because it's your go-to?
About 3.
3?
Yeah.
I'm about the same.
Yeah,
My brother
3.
runs with 1.
Oh my goodness.
So whether it's 5, 6, 7, whatever days, it's
Unreal.
chicken Alfredo every night for that guy.
That would be the one I would choose. That would be
It
the
is
one I would
good, yeah.
choose.
I gotta have a little variety, but yeah, that's it. I'm simple.
Interesting.
And you let off there for us, so
Yeah.
we just went. All right. What was the best piece of gear you carried this year, either on your person or in your pack? Promise, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, my Kuyu Super Down Pro pants. I got them just before Jess's hunt, and on her hunt, we were up in the mountains, and it was windy every single day. And so sitting out there all morning, and then we glassed throughout the whole day, and those pants made a huge difference. And they had really good reinforcements on the knees and the butt as well. And a feature on them that I really appreciated was the drawstrings at the bottom around your ankle, so it didn't drag or catch on anything. You can just cinch them down to your boots. And I didn't really hike in them, but I went through a decent amount of brush, and they didn't catch or rip any holes. I think Jess finally put a hole in her pants with, I think she was crossing over a fence and just caught it. But other than that, we'd gone through brush, and they held up really well. And they were just, I think the fill is like $8.50 on those, but compared to other pants that I'd tried on, you have a pair from Cryptek, and then there's a lighter pair of pants, and those I run cold, so those were a big deal to me. Probably the warmest pair of pants.
Nice.
I threw on I put down the Cryptek Aries down jacket, and that's not a coat that I expected to be blown away by. I've worn a lot of really nice down coats. One of my favorites is the Stone Glacier Grumman, but that Cryptek jacket comes in at like $275, I think, not on a sale or anything, and it is the warmest, most windproof down jacket I've ever worn. And I think we'd all three of us would agree after that Idaho hunt, after the sheep hunt, it's just a fantastic coat to put on, and you just feel happy.
Yep.
when you cuddle up in
on
that
a
thing.
hug.
Uh-huh.
I will say it's not barbed wire proof, but no down jacket is. What I did to that jacket, nothing would have survived. It looked like I shot a goose instead of a deer.
Lack of finesse.
But no, I love that Aries jacket too.
Yep.
Whenever I'm wearing Cryptek, it goes with me in every pack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
That was the first down jacket I got or big down jacket I got was at Aries. I still have it. I love that, and my Kings XKG. Those two both feel like that hug.
Yep.
For me, it was, there's like two things that I was torn on. One, I got a new rangefinder for the first time. I had been using a rangefinder that I found on that hunt that the three of us went
I
on
remember
in Nevada, that we just found on the trail.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked for years after that.
Wow.
Ish.
Yeah. It was a little spotty, and it only worked within like 80 yards, but I always went, I'm not going to shoot farther than 80 yards anyways. And so I stuck with that thing forever because I'm a cheapo sometimes. And I just thought, well, I have one that works. And then for the first time last year, I rifle hunted for the first time in forever. And I realized that 80 yards was insufficient for ranging for rifle. So I got that Vortex Ranger 1800. I love it. I like all of the Vortex Rangers. I think we carry 3,000 and 4,000 in the store. I'd like to upgrade a little bit. At the time, it's a little embarrassing, but I was on my way to the hunt and realized that I was gun hunting for the first time. Well, you kind of did some of this too this year because this was the first year you've hunted with
20
a gun
years,
in a long time. And it just wasn't part of my packing list. I went, crap, I need a rangefinder that can. So I ended up going to Sportsman's Warehouse and buying a rangefinder on the way to the hunt.
Forrest is
my
over here like
Fine.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Offline.
Some disciplinary
helping
action.
their margins.
I know. It was a low point for me. I went in there with my head down. But yeah.
They give you the employee discount?
No.
All right, you paid for it then.
But that's probably the one I would go with. How about you, Matt?
This was like the easiest one out of every question. I think it was the SIG Zulu 6 image stabilizing binos. I broke my binos, dropped them, and they hit perfect when I was in Oregon on my Roosevelt hunt.
Oh.
Like literally on the eyepiece, just hit at the angle and just completely one eyepiece is,
Oh.
at almost a 45. Like it just hit perfect. And so I called Craig at SIG, and I was a couple hours south of Beaverton, and said, hey, can I come up and get a pair of binos? He's like, come on up. He had them waiting for me, and I got to go back on my hunt. And I played with them a little bit at TAC when they had the SIG booth there. Mm-hmm. But they're just unbelievable, like game changer. I mean, being able, I'll give up a little bit of clarity, like compared to an NL Pure or something like that,
Right.
to be able to just lock in. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive. My son, we drive back and forth from Oregon to Nevada quite a bit. I'm still an Oregon resident. And like going south of Ely, all the elk that are out off the side of the highway, we're driving like 80 miles an hour, and he's in the back seat in his booster seat, like, I see them all. And it makes it fun for my son and my wife to glass too, which is really neat. Like I took my 6-year-old on the antelope hunt, and every time he'd see an antelope, he'd start giggling, so I knew he could actually see him. So like incorporating people who aren't as good on glass, I think is pretty cool, and they definitely have that feature. And like I shot my Oryx this year in New Mexico, and I'm on my knees, gun on the tripod, in the shoulder, like watching the herd of Oryx. And in my offhand, one-handed at 400 yards, I'm glassing. Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm literally like, okay, that's the Oryx I'm going to shoot. Look back in the scope, look back in the binos, put my rangefinder in my pouch, and shoot my Oryx. So, I mean, to be able to or to be able to glass something at 400 yards one-handed and be in the gun with the other hand, I was like, I'll give up a touch of clarity. The clarity's still fantastic, but the ability to glass, and I know here in the near future, they're actually going to get a tripod type adapter for the Zulus,
Right.
which putting them on a tripod is going to be even that much better.
Yeah, and the only reason for that is they're steady enough to handhold, but your arms get tired.
Yeah.
They get tired, and I think also filming.
Yeah.
For so many of us, we want to film some of the stuff to
Right.
where being able to put them on a tripod to be able to film through them would be nice.
No, it'll be a game changer for sure. Sadly, or gladly, you stole mine. Completely agree. And I'll just add a couple scenarios that we've used specifically that this glass shines. Started the first time we ever saw them in action was when Isaiah brought a pair on one of our boat hunts. I can't remember if it was the spring bear or if it was a Kodiak blacktail hunt. But we're in Alaska on high seas, rough waters, and Isaiah's out on the deck with his Zulu 6s. Oh, there's a deer up there, and we're all like bobbing around, can't see anything, half seasick. No, it's a game changer. And honestly, as far as the clarity goes, in the last year, I've had that glass side by side with the best brands in the world. And it's really hard to say this isn't as good as that.
Yeah.
I think low light is where you do pick up a little bit of difference in those because they don't have as much.
Because the objective's only 42 millimeters
Correct.
compared to
Right.
a 50 or a 56. So I think
Correct.
that's the only part where
But it's a phenomenal glass.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Clarity-wise.
It's hard to look through normal binos now for me.
Yeah.
I feel like, though, it's worth mentioning, like, the actual eye relief is quite a bit smaller. When you're looking through it, the circle that you see is quite a bit smaller than especially something like the NLPers.
The field of view you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like the Vortex UHDs. It's not the same. It's not apples to apples. But, again, the stability makes up for any sort of clarity. Even, like, if you can have the nicest binos in the world, if it's blowing and you can't secure your tripod that well, the stabilized binoculars are worth every penny.
Yeah.
But one of the things with the 10s and 12s and the Zulu 6s, their field of view is actually pretty decent. It's when you get to the 16s and 20s that the field of view goes down quite a bit. That's where I've got a pair of 12s and 16s, and depending on the hunt is what I'll grab. Mm-hmm. But and the 10s are tiny. I don't know if you've seen the 10s, but like they're tiny.
Lightweight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, did I not lead this one off?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Wasn't that promise?
That's me.
Oh, the gear we carried on me. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgive me. For me, hands down, Tricer BC, that entire tripod setup to include their LP panhead. Last year I was running the Sea Ray ST124 with the VA5, about a 4-pound system. I changed it up to the Tricer setup this year and easily cut off 2 full pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I mean, that's the biggest game changer as far as the gear I had on my person or in my pack. Made a couple personal tweaks to it as far as, how I was able to keep the LP panhead effectively threaded onto the tripod. It came loose inadvertently a few times out there, but one quick dab of blue Loctite, not in any excess amount, fixed it, and solid system for me.
I've been using the panhead on top of my Sea Ray tripod on a full-size like zoom camera.
Mm-hmm.
A heavy piece of equipment. It still performs well.
We get a lot of questions at Gearful as far as can this panhead, will it work for a big spotter?
Mm-hmm.
And I often reference you and in your video that you've posted on YouTube for that. And I mean, it's an easy sell. They're all in once they see that, and rightfully so too.
Right.
So, yeah, good product, good company too.
Yeah.
Yep. Love the company. All right. What piece, and Brady, you'll be kicking this one off. What piece of gear were you most disappointed with this year, and why?
Can I just make a caveat here before he takes off?
Come on, let me
Brady
go.
is hands down the hardest. Him and Isaiah Joner are the two hardest people on gear of anybody that I know. Brady uses his stuff.
Yeah.
But with that said, go ahead, Brady.
Okay. Well, this one has nothing to do with use necessarily in terms of it wearing out. Forrest is going to laugh. Number one on the list was the Stone Glacier Helio hoodie. And it performed just fine. It's a grid fleece, just like this Sitka heavyweight that I'm wearing now. Mm-hmm. Once it's on, you don't care. 3 big gripes about it. Number one is the hood fit. You put that hood on, and you look like a mushroom head or something. I don't even know. Like, there's no way to make that hood look good. And as a photographer,
This is coming from the guy who wears Crocs
He's got them on right now. Socks and
and
Crocs.
high water pants.
not when I'm hunting. I look good when I'm hunting.
Fair enough.
And I'm trying to take pictures of people, and they got the Helio hood on, and it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah, I don't know. Just
So that was one of the, you said there were 3 things.
Yep. The other one is a chest zipper. Might be a personal preference. They put it lower down, so it's like near the bottom of my rib cage. And anytime I put anything with weight in there, it just sags in a funny way. I think it's silly. Number 3, for some reason, that piece seems to have a ton of static when I'm putting it on over a base layer. So it's very hard to put on in the morning. I'll find that I'll leave my base layer inside of it and then just use them as a single piece.
Copy.
So, but that's personal preference, if you will. It performed fine. All Havalon blades are on my gripe list for this year.
Wow.
All Havalon blades.
I would say the same.
Speaking in absolutes.
Yeah.
I feel like Brady's about to list off of. I said one thing, and Brady's like, "All right, my moment."
I don't play by the rules, Jake.
He's writing
Hammer
the
'em.
soapbox for next month.
But seriously, there's better options out there for a knife. I like to have a replaceable blade knife and a fixed blade knife for going through an animal, especially a larger one, an elk or a moose that's going to have a lot of hide that you got to cut through. Use a replaceable blade for that, but don't use a Havalon unless you're, skinning out around the antlers or the face.
Cape work.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's better options out there. And the Tito's new replaceable blade knife, I'm going to get one here soon and try it out, but I have a lot of faith in that one.
Yeah, I believe that's called the hollow bone,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken there. So,
Um,
and they went to their own proprietary replaceable blades too. Tito did.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
A little bit more
Nice.
robust, or
Yep.
significantly more robust. So time will tell. I think you've
Nice.
got one coming, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Anxious to see how that turns out.
Me too, because it's a similar design to the Havalon blade in terms of attachment. I don't like the outdoor edge because as soon as you get any meat in there, it'll gum up and then you just can't operate it. So
Yeah. Well, in case anybody listening is like, well, what does the media guy know about running a knife? The truth of the matter is when something dies, Brady gets his knife in there as quick as possible because he knows, hey, when we get this thing done, we can go back to camp.
exactly, we're getting out of here.
This guy has ran a knife through more meat this year than anybody I know, probably. So-
After days and weeks
Yeah.
of carrying more weight than anybody else, for
Exactly.
example. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
So
got
there-
you, Brady.
There's
don't worry.
credibility there.
Number 3.
Oh, my goodness.
Buckle up, boys. You let me lead. Number 3 is a lack of a good shovel in the truck. And that might not quite count under here, but I had to mention it.
It definitely does not. But go ahead.
But I had to mention it.
I can
Hopefully
see that.
save someone some heartache because Jared, Promise, and I were kicking ourselves. And it was not your fault.
You didn't have a shovel in the truck?
Is
Is that
that-
the story?
There was a miscommunication at the ranch at Thanksgiving when we did Friendsgiving.
Oh.
I thought that it was Brady's shovel. It was John's shovel. And so
Oh.
I didn't grab mine out of my truck to go into his truck, and we didn't have one.
And I thought he had
And then
one.
Walmart conveniently was completely sold out of all their shovel inventory. So we
course.
bought one of the little folding poop shovels and a Pulaski.
And it's only so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's beauty in the proper truck recovery kit. I mean, it's an
100%.
essential.
Big time.
When my younger brother turned 18 for Christmas, I mean, my wife is gonna laugh right now, but I bought him a shovel, keeping his little Ford Ranger.
Yeah.
And he
that's a good
used
one.
that to get unstuck more times than he can probably count. So he still
Put one
carries
in
it today.
Teresa's expedition
Yeah.
for Isaiah.
What was that?
We should put one in Teresa's expedition for Isaiah.
Man, I want to laugh so hard at that one.
A little salty still. Number 4. This is the last one. But I purchased the Intercept pant this year. And I think it's like a $300-some pant. It's insanely expensive. I love them. But in the pocket, they have an internal pocket. So you've got the thigh pocket, and then inside there's another smaller pocket. It's the most useless thing ever, and I'm going to cut mine out because you always go into the smaller pocket. You can't access the bigger one easily.
Could not agree more. It's arguably my favorite pant in their line,
Mhm.
but that little pocket in there is just mind blowing. Who designed that?
Who passed that? Like, I get the idea, but then using it, and you're like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
It's a $300 pant.
It's a weird
I actually
divider.
love that pocket.
What?
You do?
No.
So you would.
In fact, I have the same gripe. Although it didn't resonate with me for months after wearing that pant, I must say. But I can see we're thinking the same. It is a bit of a nuisance,
It seems useless. Because I'm on Onyx all the time when I'm hunting, and it's like you're going in and out of that pocket with your phone, and your phone, it's just about the wrong size. It's just Cut it out.
Cut it out. Okay, that's it. Go ahead.
You're done now?
I am done now, yes.
Wow.
Podcast is probably done now.
No. For me, I upgraded bino harnesses this year. I got the Stone Glacier Skyline bino harness. I really like the bino harness. I think it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's compact. It works great for my 10x42 Swaros, my ELs. But the rangefinder pouch that it came with was designed very clearly just for Leica rangefinders, and that Vortex I mentioned earlier, all of Vortex's rangefinders have this grip treatment on the outside of them that is nice for holding on to, but it catches on things. And so I could not get my rangefinder out of that rangefinder pouch, and it's a pretty small rangefinder pouch too. And what I ended up having to do was I wrapped my rangefinder in electrical tape in order to slide it in and out of that rangefinder pouch, which has been a solution. And now I really like the bino harness itself. My gripe is that for rangefinders that aren't Leica, that it's really what it's designed for, is a Leica rangefinder.
Yeah, and for me, I took the Revic Hunter tripod on a couple of my hunts, and it's sturdy. It's a bigger tripod, and I knew that going into it. It does not have a pan head, and there's a coarse adjustment knob and a fine adjustment knob, and then there's another knob on there. And I was like, okay, I know I'm going into it not with a pan head, but just the coarse adjustment knob and the fine one, it's like, man, it was so finicky on locking in on target. I mean, it's built well, but I like a pan head. That's just what it is. So, and I took it on a couple hunts, and it does its job, but I'm not a fan of not having a pan head and being able to actually go through stuff and just have, I guess, one knob to be able to adjust to go side to side. It's kind of like the old, razor spotting scopes where you had your fine, your coarse, compared to, the newer ones to where it's just one knob to where you can dial it in. I think it's similar to that. Mm-hmm. So that was the piece of gear that I used, and I'm like, I'm probably not going to use again on that.
I'd have to echo that. I was not impressed with the design of it. Mm-hmm. Like you said, build quality was great, but function.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I almost would tighten the fine all the way down and use the coarse to actually micro adjust more so than the other way around, because if I had the coarse down, it was too tight. Yep. So I mean, build's there, but it wasn't my favorite.
Mine is, I'm not even going to mention a brand because the brand itself is amazing and I shoot better with it, but I switched to a handheld release 2 years ago. And I shoot better with it, there's no question. But managing it in the field, the more I hunt elk and whatever else, I just have the toughest time keeping quiet with it, picking up your rangefinder, your binos, etc., clinking into your bow. I finally ended up creating a little tie system around my wrist with some release loop. They do make them with wrist straps. Bottom line is, if you're contemplating making a switch from an index trigger to something like that, spend a ton of time in the field with it. Honestly, my Arizona archery elk hunt, I felt frustrated by that thing pretty much every day. And I think you guys saw me dinking with it every day. And it wasn't the release. Again, it shoots better than I deserve to shoot. And that's why I wanted to make the switch. But, management of it was awful.
Interesting.
What's the attachment Jessica has on her bow that actually holds the handheld?
Magnetic one?
Yeah, it's a magnetic one that has a little lever. But I know Jessica carries that on her bow, and it seems pretty slick.
I love that idea. What I found, and we actually have this on film, that second to last night of the season when we had that probably 340, mid 340s type bull.
Oh, yeah.
And we got surrounded by cows. The problem is we got so immersed in the elk herd for so long that you just can't make any movements. Yeah. Like my only movement I wanted to make was, from my neck to my eye for a rangefinder, and like clicking stuff on your bow, and it was dead quiet that night. It was one of those where you could hear an ant cough at like 200 yards. It was just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So, yeah, I just couldn't figure out a way to manage it. And there's way better hunters and way better shots that use those exclusively out there. So I'm not saying it's a bad solution, but if you're thinking about the Switch, spend a ton of time in the field with it, trying to actually emulate real-world hunting scenarios where you're trying to be quiet and not click it on things and bash it off your bow cam.
Yeah.
No, some good mentions for sure. For myself, as far as the gear I was most disappointed with, man, the InReach Explorer Plus that I've had for years and still do bugged me to no end. The
What?
transmit and
The old
receive
one?
functionality, yeah. The original, taller variant, you
Yeah.
know. I've ran that for years successfully, but this year, Arizona, Utah, and Idaho, there were multiple occasions in which I could not effectively transmit and receive text messages with the wife back on the homestead. And, you know, I'm kind of wondering why that might be. I did also notice that the battery life would deplete more readily this year than it was in years past. I think that just comes with age and batteries in general. But, again, my brother running with me, having a different branded satellite communicator, I mean, he was text messaging at will. And then I would have at times a several-hour delay in just getting a simple text message out. And sometimes those text messages just eat at you, right? You want to know how the kids are, and you get one message back, you know, in this example from my wife, and it's, you know, it kind of leaves you hanging, and then you send another text message immediately to say, hey, please clarify what's going on, you know, and here I am several hours later, just turning it off, I'm turning it back on, doing everything I possibly can, getting better line of sight with the overhead, and man, it just it didn't shine this year, and I'm probably going to look to upgrade because I've heard of better performance from some Garmin products that are a little bit more modern, specifically from Austin up in Alaska with the Messenger, for example. So yeah, I think it might be time to look in that direction, at least on my part.
Maybe I better do the same. I got the same one.
Well, how did you use it in Alaska?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you didn't have any issues?
I mean, the normal text coming in out of order and stuff, but no problems
It
with
did function better after you hit the reset button. I mean, if you remember right, in Kodiak in October, Brady, so he claims that he didn't have any issues. Remember, this is the kid who put his Garmin in the freezer on the boat to try to deplete the battery life faster.
because it was frozen.
Because it
so I
was
had to freeze
frozen.
it.
But then we start looking at it closer, and there's a reset button on it. We hit the reset button. It was good to go.
Put it in
Not
the
my
freezer.
finest
while
moment.
they're resetting
It was
it.
kind of like Joey on Friends when he was reading the sad book. Put it in the freezer.
Well, yeah. Anyways,
All right. Promise. Let's round us off. What piece of gear were you most disappointed with this
Mine
year?
was the Sitka Women's Core Merino 220. I wore it once. I hated the fit of it. And I don't know if it was just that one in particular, but it was like I had so much extra material over the stomach, and it was short, and then it was like a little bit longer than the back. So I tried to wear it again, and I ended up taking it off like midway through the day, and then I never brought it on another hunt with me again, and I just left it.
And that was the women's and that's the Core Merino lineup with the armor. Because I'm a
Yes.
big fan of the Core Merino
Yeah,
lineup
same here.
for
And
the
I didn't even
men's.
get to the point of testing it out because I hated the fit so much. So another thing that I was really frustrated with this year was we put on my pack a water bottle holder from EXO, and getting my water bottle in and out of that holder was such a wrestle.
I've heard that from others as well.
You got to put some
Yeah.
more girth on. That's
No.
we got to girth you up. It brings the water bottle around. That's the problem.
Yeah,
if you got to
heard
reach
that
onto your
on that
back.
that Nalgene holder that they came
Yeah.
out with. I've
Yep.
heard that it was difficult for one person, the wearer, to actually get it in and out, specifically in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I appreciate that I'm not going to lose it while I'm running around in the woods, but I also, it's so frustrating getting a drink of water that I
You don't
usually
even like
just
water.
this is
Tell
true.
the truth.
I don't like water, but that's what wilderness athlete is for.
All right. Final question. This will be perfect. This will keep us under an hour here. We'll go around and just share what was the weirdest thing you carried in your pack this year. I guess it's my turn to start. I used to be an English teacher, so I always carry a physical book. in my mind, big weight penalty. I know Forrest is like, what are you doing?
Red flag.
Red flag.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Gotcha.
I carried a couple nonfiction books. I think the one I ended on was the Federalist Papers.
Oh my gosh.
Because I also used to teach history.
A lot.
Yep, it's a significant book, but
We're
it doubles
completely
as
discredited.
fire starter if you need. I thought about it last year. I almost tore up my book. It was so wet. I got rained on so bad, and there was no tinder. I was very close to burning a book in the woods in Montana, but no. So I always carry a physical book.
You're not alone. There's others that do the same thing, whether on their phone or actual physical book. Actually, there's an interesting question. Why did you take an actual book versus just something on your phone, for example?
It's not going to deplete my battery.
Okay.
Like I usually
Just a different approach then.
It'll deplete
Yeah.
your physical battery carrying that extra weight.
He's not bringing just a book, though. He's not bringing like a little, half-pound Louis L'Amour. He's bringing a 3-pound Federalist
It's
Papers.
not that big. It's like that big.
Dude.
And I bring
That's a textbook.
highlighters and a pen for it.
Oh, my gosh.
Podcast is over. I have no credibility.
No, I could get down with everyone having their own, oddities and some item or two that they carry, I think it's interesting. So
We all have them. What's yours, Matt?
I don't think mine's weird, but it's anti-monkey butt powder, the little yellow pouch or bottle of it. A doctor that I guided in Montana way back in the day, we got done archery hunting, and there were several of us in camp that were chafed up bad. It was just hot in Montana.
What were you guys doing?
We were
smelling like Sunday dinner.
trying to come up with stuff to not throw other people under the bus. No, but to where, we were like hydrocortisone cream, like it was like painful, not just like little red chafing. And the doctor's like, oh, this is way better than any prescription hydrocortisone cream. Like it's going to keep sweat down, keep chafing down. And I primarily archery hunt, so it's usually warmer. And, I think any guys that's got big legs is going to deal with chafing at some point. So that's something that, normally I just keep a little powder or a little baggie of it instead of carrying the whole tube of it. But, the chafing powder is a big one that is always in my pack.
I do the same thing.
Yep.
I carry a little baggie of it. Looks like cocaine.
It does. I'm not taking that to Mexico in a couple weeks. A little baggie of white powder into Mexico. That's not happening.
Yeah, for me this year, my dad passed away September 18th, and so the rest of the season I carried a teaspoon of his ashes around in my bino harness. So he got his leg hurt in a logging accident and gave up 11 years of his life trying to save it. And when it was all said and done, he ended up having it amputated 11 years later, and it took so much out of him that he couldn't really get around the mountains. And he always talked about that's what he really missed. So he's going on a lot of hunts from here on out.
That's awesome.
So
that's super cool.
that was definitely my weirdest thing I've ever carried in my pack. But yeah.
Perhaps the most important too.
Yeah, it was near and dear to my heart, literally on my bino harness.
Well, weirdest for me is nothing new in my regard. I think I'm the only one in the office that carries it, but it's a schmog. It's nothing more than an Afghan cloth I've had for many, many years, but I will drape that over my head and neck to keep the sun off my face and such, just because, I don't know, I guess I'm getting weak as I approach 40. I just like keeping that sun off me to the greatest extent possible. But then that piece of gear is so versatile. You can use it to make a makeshift sling should you injure your arm. I use it freely for straining out or filtering the big floaties when I feel an Nalgene in whatever water source I come across, just to get that first step taken care of. And then just using it as a general cloth too. I use it all the time.
How big is that?
Oh, I don't
A couple
know.
feet by a couple feet?
Do you see this? How far is that?
39
Sounds about right.
inches.
How about this one right here? 24. It's about that. Like you could drape it over your head and then tie it off and such. But yeah, it's just a versatile piece that not everyone carries, and it's cheap too, cheap and functional.
Is that a functional deal or a sentimental deal as well for you?
I've had it for years. I've taken it with me all around the world, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes when I pull it out of the pack, it brings back memories of distant lands, but I don't carry it for that reason. I'm not really the sentimental and
yeah.
emotional
I
type.
get that. That's why I was asking this.
Let me break this icicle off your elbow.
Yeah, I know, right? So anyway, that's me again.
Mine is heated socks.
Heated socks.
Yes.
I'm intrigued.
They almost knee length, 2 batteries on each side, and 3 different settings. Rechargeable batteries.
Something
And
you take on a day trip or something you take on a multi-day
I
trip?
bring them anywhere that I know that I can recharge them, or if it's a day trip or a multi-day, depending on the setting. If I keep it on like a lower setting, then I can make them last a couple of days. Or when I get in my sleeping bag, just warm up my feet, because my feet take a long time to warm up. I think I brought them on your hunt as well, and I wore them most nights.
I know they were mentioned somewhere in one of those hunts. Yeah.
And there's beauty in this, in my opinion, because you grew up where, Promise?
In Naknek,
Alaska.
Yes.
No one knows
No one knows what
Alaska.
Naknek is.
Like in the thick of the cold. So,
Yeah.
you know, from a male or female perspective, when you throw out something that has to do with enduring the cold, I mean, I think there's value in it, certainly for a lot of people.
Yeah, I use them throughout the summer too while I was fishing on the boat every night.
Is it
Yeah.
a specific
Huge.
brand or is it an off-brand deal or?
I don't remember what brand it is. They're from Amazon. A friend of mine shared them with me, and I ordered them in the summertime. And then huge game
Merino?
changer. No, they're
Oh,
just
not a
cotton.
Merino.
They're not any type of
What's
quality.
the price point on something like that?
Like $90.
Okay.
90?
Yeah.
Oh.
Worth it.
I
Hello.
hope it gives me
To
gentle
me.
toe massage. While
Yeah, that price.
Those
Warm
socks don't know what
toes?
they're
Can you
getting
roll
into.
the pinky toe a little?
I've definitely been on some hunts where I would have paid $200 for some heated socks
Yes.
at the moment. So
Huge difference.
My weirdest thing in my pack. Well,
Oh, brother.
Here comes a list of 3.
well, 5. So, I have a pretty straightforward pack because I try and keep my pack as minimalist as possible in terms of equipment and gear, so that I can bring as much good food as possible.
Yes, you do.
Examples would be a bottle of hot sauce, some seasoning for peak meals if it's a multi-day trip. I used a bottle of honey this year on that moose hunt on day 11. Throwing a little honey on your Pop-Tarts was a big win.
On your
Honey and Bear
Pop-Tarts.
Country.
Yeah.
Nice.
He ain't scared.
Isaiah
Yeah, I
was
can
there.
He
see
ain't
He
scared.
And Isaiah's just waiting for that bear. man.
He's like, I've been training my whole life for this moment.
Exactly.
I mean, could you have a better camera guy? I mean, a guy that's going to carry all the weight, break down the animal after the kill, and carry the seasoning and hot sauce on your behalf.
I know.
Because he does share.
Yes, he does.
So
half of it went to Isaiah and his brother.
I'm not surprised.
And you know their mindset on the hot sauce especially changed drastically from the beginning to the end of the hunt.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But the weirdest one, and I don't know if I'd do it again, but on that same moose hunt, I brought a bag of roasted garlic
Oh.
to add to the peak meals. You know.
In case you come across them vampires.
Yeah.
Also that Alaskan vampires, you got to watch out. Yeah. So that was, I don't know, maybe kind of a rude move for your camp friends, but
there ain't no kinda about it.
it was tasty.
I just ate refried beans the whole time.
Terrible. Well, shoot. Awesome. No, that rounds us out. That keeps us right there under an hour. Thank you guys for hopping in, and thank you guys for tuning in for our Gear of the Year podcast. Be on the lookout moving into 2024. We got great stuff coming from HFA, great films coming from HF, awesome gear reviews coming from Gear Fool. If you have any questions specifically related to gear, be sure to give us a call at Gear Fool. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Be on the lookout for all the exciting stuff we have in 2024.